Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to our viewers from India and good morning to our friends from the Netherlands. I'm Ati Malik from the Startup India team at Invest India, the National Investment Promotion and Facilitation Agency of India. On behalf of our entire team, Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, the Embassy of India in The Hague, and the Embassy of the Kingdom of Netherlands, we welcome you all to the concluding event of the Indo-Dutch talks. I would like to express my sincerest gratitude to His Excellency Martin van den Berg, Ambassador of the Netherlands to India, Nepal, and Bhutan, and Mr. Deepak Bagla, Managing Director and CEO Invest India, for taking out their valuable time to grace the occasion. The growth of startups in India has been remarkable in the recent years, and today we have more than 60,000 startups spread across 600 districts. Apart from immense opportunities available for the startups in the country, we are seeing an interesting trend of startups expanding globally. Startup India enables global market and knowledge exchange through bilateral government collaborations, and we have launched several bilateral bridges with countries. Considering the Netherlands as one of the preferred location for Indian businesses, we have been working very closely on various collaboration areas with the Dutch government. One of the marquee initiatives launched in March of 2021 has been the Indo-Dutch Talk series. The objective of launching the program was to help Indian startups explore and navigate the Dutch market virtually. The series of these closed door sessions over the past few months have given Indian startups a central platform to connect with experts and enable knowledge exchange. The program was launched in the middle of the pandemic, but that did not stop our Indian entrepreneurs from soaring high. We concluded 5 chapters of the series and have received overwhelming response from the startups which are keen to explore the Dutch ecosystem. We saw over 500 participants attend the sessions with over 12 experts from 10 Dutch organizations. Over these past few months, we have also established dedicated connects of these startups with the Dutch players, and some startups are in the advanced stages of their discussion. We would like to sincerely thank all our mentors for taking out their valuable time to be a part of this initiative. We also truly appreciate the support extended by the Embassy to drive this mission of joint innovation and collaboration. Today, we are celebrating the success of the program and are concluding the series with a focus on 2 sectors of mutual interest between the Indian and the Dutch government, that is, agri-tech and health tech. As part of today's session, we'll be having interesting conversations and panel discussions, along with some pitching sessions by Indian startups. These startups have been selected after a rigorous evaluation and are the winners of National Startup Awards 2021, which is an initiative of the Ministry of Commerce. And this is out to reward outstanding Indian startups which are building innovative products and solutions. Without much ado, I would like to invite Mr. Deepak Bagla, Managing Director and CEO in West India, for his welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ati, and such a pleasure to be here. And it is a privilege for me on behalf of Invest India and Startup India to welcome you all. Excellency, as always, thank you very much for being with us. You're seeing your leadership. Ati mentioned that we have a few of our bridges with over about 12, 13 different countries. But I must say the one which we have with you is the one which stands out, both in vibrancy and the activity which is happening on this one. And it's actually showing results. And we must commend you and your leadership, Excellency, for taking it so forward. I remember in 2018 was the first time when we launched this bridge together. And then again in 2019, that is that amazing festival which you do back home, the global festival. We were all there and our startups were there. And we are seeing this traction picking up momentum ever since. And you can see even the results today. It is also a pleasure for me to welcome all the mentors who have given their time, who've given their guidance, and more so congratulate the startups who are going to be here today. There are already winners, there are many more, but I do congratulate you once again that you are going to be here showcasing the amazing level of innovation which is happening. And I must say, if there is a story of the new India and the modern India which I pick up, is the story of startups, is the story of innovation. And it is this innovation which is showing not just the big opportunity available in India, but also showing the entrepreneurship which is happening in India as we speak. Last year, Excellency, as you know, we added one unicorn approximately every 28, 30 days, a little over 30 days actually. But this year, we've added a unicorn every a little over a week, just about 8.5 days. And that is the pace at which India is growing. We are number three in the world in number of unicorns. And if I just look at the third quarter on this year, we actually exceeded the entire world in the number of unicorns which got added in the third quarter itself in India. So, as I've always said, the story has just begun. There's a huge strength in our entrepreneurship. One, I think it is known for best utilization of capital. The frugality with which they work is exceptional, and which shows that a lot of these valuations are not just based on PowerPoint presentations, but based on actual problems being solved in a very economical and scalable manner. That is the strength of our startups. And the other strength, and that a testimony to that, is if I just look at the funding which happened even in the midst of this lockdown last year itself. We got $63 billion dollars both in PE and VC together. This does not include real estate, so that number would go up substantially. But just to put it in perspective, the previous year, this number was 40, 39.9. So from 39.9, it has moved on to 63. The other interesting thing in venture capital per se, last year was 34.7 billion. Interestingly, the year before last, it was just 11.4 billion. So from 11.4, you move to 34.7. And even if I look at the mega deals which is there, by the way, this 34.7 was across a little over 1,000 deals. And if I look at the number of mega deals which happened last year, mega deals means venture capital deals which were over $100 million. We saw 97 of them in India last year. The previous year, 28. So this is going beyond a geographic progression as we see the way the story is unfolding. And I think it is a great opportunity, not just to solve the challenges which we are facing in our respective countries, but also to provide solutions for the entire world. And that is where the scalability and the amazing minds of these people come. And I must mention on behalf of Invest India itself that one of our own members who left Invest India just a couple of years ago is now one of the senior management of a startup, of a fintech related startup, which is has an amalgamation of both our countries. And they are now seeing some very amazing results, and they've got several awards even in Europe. So, in every which way, Excellency, thank you again for your entire guidance, entire effort in getting this entire movement going. I actually see a lot more happening on this front. Today, obviously, we are looking at startups in agri-tech and biotech and healthcare, which are very, very critical. But I think there are a number of other sectors on which we will see this interaction becoming more and more active. And for me, it is a privilege to see this happen and to be a part of this entire activity. It's an absolute pleasure. With that, Ati, I take it back to you. I thank you all for being with us. We are really looking forward to see the proceedings, and there'll be some very interesting panel discussions, which we are all looking forward to. And thanking once again all the mentors, the entrepreneurs, the guides for their time and to be with us and to get us all together. Thank you again. Cheers. Thank you, Ati.
Thank you so much, sir, for your inspiring words and encouragement as always. It is now our pleasure to invite His Excellency Martin van den Berg, Ambassador of the Netherlands to India, Nepal, and Bhutan, with us today. Your Excellency, may I please request you to deliver the address?
Thank you so much, Artie, and good afternoon to everyone. And of course, a very special good afternoon to my dear friend Deepak. It's really a wonderful opportunity also to be together again on the startup discussion and discuss how we can further stimulate and strengthen the world of startups. I think it's also the Indo-Dutch talks are extremely successful, and I think a very nice way of working together. But let me also congratulate India, but also Startup India for their great success in the world of startups. It's indeed amazing what you can see in India, what's happening in India. And I think also being an economist, startups really play a very, very important role in our society, in our economy with their breakthrough innovations, with their creating competition. And I also, if I see startups are connected with courage, they're risk takers, they are bringing breakthrough innovations. I see a lot of entrepreneurship, and that's all kind of ingredients we need today in our society, in our economy. And also today, dealing with societal challenges, the startups do play a very, very important role because we do need breakthrough innovations. We have to break through structures to make innovations really work today. And I think India is doing a great job. And I'm so very happy because also in the Netherlands, we think that startups play a very, very important, a vital role in our economy, in our society. So the way we are connected between India and the Netherlands, the way we are trying to facilitate soft landings for Indian startups in the Netherlands and Dutch startups in India, I think it's a great example. You mentioned, Deepak, the way we work together. I think it's extremely successful, but also very important. And I also do see a lot of opportunities in many, many areas in the future for startups. And I think we both as governments should facilitate startups as much as possible. I'm also happy to see that not only governments facilitate startups, also a lot of corporates, like for example Philips here in India, are really facilitating startups. And I think it's very good that also in the private sector we do see a lot of facilitation of startups. It's wonderful to see on the one hand many startups, but also the mentors who are supporting startups to become very successful in the market. So I think if we look to the coming year, we celebrate 75 years of diplomatic ties between the Netherlands and India. And I think we really have a lot to celebrate. We share a long history, a very successful history. But I think if we look to the future, we see a very bright future between India and Netherlands because we are working so closely together in addressing societal challenges. We all know how many challenges we face today. But I think our collaboration between the Netherlands and India is very successful in addressing, in dealing with the society challenges very successfully. And I think, again, startups do play a key role. So I'm very happy to see that is a very successful collaboration between India and the Netherlands. Looking very much forward to even further strengthen this collaboration between the Netherlands and India in startup ecosystems, getting ecosystems between India and Netherlands better connected with each other, and looking forward to further work with Startup India. And thank you so much for having me today. Looking very much forward to a wonderful discussion and a panel discussion and see how we can further facilitate and strengthen the world of startups. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for your valuable insights on the existing collaboration. Your guiding words really mean a lot to us. Now, before we move on to our first panel discussion in the healthcare domain, um, on how can biotech or healthcare startups leverage the Indo-Dutch startup link, I would now like to introduce our panelists to the audience. Our first panelist for today is Mr. Tonko Veda, who's the Director, Healthcare Accelerator Program at Rockstart. He has more than 25 years of experience in ICT and digital health, and he has held various international senior management positions in global ICT companies. He's also the founder and CEO of Growth Consultants. Welcome, Tonko. Our second panelist for today is Miss Andrea Pota, who's the scouting head at Yes Delft. She gets to assess over 800 deep tech startups per year, all ranging from clean tech to med tech. Welcome, Andrea. Our next panelist for today is Dr. Taslim Arif Syed, who's the CEO and director at CCAMP, where he's involved in promoting life sciences and healthcare innovations. He has been trained in neurosciences and management for biotech and innovation. Welcome, Dr. Taslim. Our next panelist is Mr. Roland Zegger, who's the venture partner at NLC. Roland has worked in several pharmaceutical companies and has broad experience in marketing and sales functions, and his focus is on building innovative companies at NLC. Welcome, Roland, and thank you for joining us. Our moderator for today's session is Mr. Kedar. He's the director for Philips Ventures Asia Pacific region based in Philips Innovation Campus at Bangalore. He has more than 25 years of experience in software engineering, early stage venturing, and corporate innovation. Welcome, Kedar, and over to you for further taking on the discussion.
Thank you, Ati. We are all good. We all can hear and see. Just making a quick check. Right. Yeah. Thanks, Deepak and Excellency, for setting the stage and very encouraging words about the collaboration, as well as upfront thanks to the panelists for taking out the time today to share with the audience insights on the Dutch as well as the Indian ecosystem, and then how for the biotech and then the health tech sector, this link can be further leveraged. So really looking forward to engaging conversation with all of you. I think to start off with, maybe I will first come to Tonko, Andrea, and Roland to share their perspectives about the key trends that you see right now in Netherlands in the Dutch healthcare ecosystem. And then subsequently, I will come to Dr. Taslim also for your reflection on how would you reflect on the scene emerging in India in both the biotech and in the broader health tech space. So starting with Andrea, your perspectives on what you see as key trends.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thanks a lot. I think I see a lot of focus on digitalizing, all the monitoring of patients, and I do see a lot of startup applications in that respect. I do see also like more and more, and it makes me happy to see that, a lot of hardware applications as well, especially when it comes to applications that I see coming out from India. I'm not sure if that reflects as well on the whole country and like what's happening in the space there, but at least what's coming my way, and it makes sense because yes, Delft is indeed a tech incubator, and we do have a lot of experience on hardware products, especially medtech ones. And I've seen a lot happening as well, like in the biotech space, with related to, in relation with alternative proteins, especially. So I think that's another maybe trend, or yeah, I guess it's a trend as well, in the other alternative proteins on the biotech sphere.
Interesting. Thanks. Tonko, what do you observe really flying nowadays?
What we see is a lot of attention for digital therapeutics and especially focus on AI solutions for healthcare. Sometimes I've even got a feeling that there are too many startups focusing on AI.
Yeah, the space is getting indeed
It's
crowded.
very crowded. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And you see that both on health tech as well as on the biotech part, or any subtle difference that you see over there?
Our focus is mainly on the health part, less on biotech. We're also looking at digital pharma initiatives.
Great, great. Yeah, thank you. Roland, what's your
May I add
observation?
one thing? We encourage startups that focus on elderly and home care technology. That's an absolute lack of that kind of startups.
Okay, so you're already calling out a white space that our ecosystem
Yeah.
colleagues and fellows over here would be interested to know about. The geriatrics is a great space or a white space uh, ripe for entrepreneurship. Thank you for that call out. Roland, how do you see what's emerging? Anything particularly through the pandemic, or something which is even
Yeah,
persisting beyond pandemic?
for sure. I think COVID helped a lot. But first of all, in general, I see a trend over the last few years, decade, that we get more and more at a more professional infrastructure and ecosystem for supporting startups. So we have a growing number of incubators. The incubators get more professionalized. But also we see that the funds, the VCs, they grow in size, also in ticket size, by the way, which is not always good for the early startups. But I think in general, there's a good climate, and the climate is getting better. So I agree with what Andrea said and what Tonko said about the trends. I think AI is a trend, and that's where COVID, I think, really supported it, because we all learned from COVID that there are very good alternatives from face-to-face visits from patients to doctors. So I think there will be a lot of innovation help to get new ways of supporting, of helping patients. Not per se by having the patients to spend a doctor visit at the office. Also, what not mentioned yet is what we see is that AI, especially in medical imaging, is really moving forward. In different medical images like CT, EEG, we see that algorithms are even better than what radiologists can diagnose in these images. And that's, of course, a long way before it gets accepted and introduced, but we see a lot of future for these technical solutions.
Thank you, Roland, for your perspectives, as well as the topics, the domains, but also from the maturity of the supporting ecosystem evolving, and then the trend of investment. I think that's great to hear. Coming to you, Dr. Taslim, you have been championing the healthcare and biotech ecosystem in India over here. What are your observations in terms of the trend from a health system perspective, but also from in the entrepreneurial aspect itself? What's really the prominent thing that you notice over here?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Keda. Thank you. And also I thank Startup India as well as the Netherlands Embassy for having me an opportunity to share some of the thoughts for Indo-Dutch collaborations in healthcare. Very quickly, if I may say, I think uh, India, I think last 2 years in general has been a nothing short of a gigantic leap in terms of building healthcare innovations or capabilities, if I may begin from that. It's a huge and gigantic leap in many areas. And this leap has actually been, and I'll try to be brief, is actually something that was necessary for India to respond to the pandemic, right? I think we all know the pandemic has affected everyone, and hence the resources which are generally available from collaborations were not available internationally. And hence, I think the healthcare ecosystem and innovations and entrepreneurs saw this as an opportunity and actually have responded to it more or less in a lightning speed to build something in across the value chain of healthcare. We can begin with diagnostics. Never ever we have had capabilities in diagnostics like this being built, and the capacity to produce, let's say, 1 million COVID RT-PCR per day. That capacity was not present, and it has been available now. We also have now phenomenal capacity for digital health. This is where your requirement for starting from the early stage screening capability, be it sound based, be it X-ray based, be it CT scan based capability in using digital understanding, be it machine learning or AI, and allowing people to assess from far has been phenomenal. In addition to digital pathology, if I go to a next stage in hospital settings, people who are hospitalized, having remote vital monitoring, where you have a simple patch or under the bedsheet, a small sensor which gives you all crucial parameters on your dashboard anywhere, is a phenomenal thing, and they have actually championed it in this time. Not only they have built it, they are deployed. So, and I can go on in terms of therapeutics and so on. I would say that this is really a gigantic leap. Not that I'm saying that this is end of the road. This is beginning of the journey for Indian healthcare innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem, and that is actually a very good news for us, because this actually brings us to a good stage where our collaborations could be much more productive. Traditionally, as I think His Excellency mentioned, that it has been a 75 years of diplomatic, tie-up. And through 75 years, India has slowly and steadily built its capability. But I think last 2 years has a large catalytic component to it. And I think, if I may summarize and not take too much of time from everyone, just but ensure, I think diagnostics, digital health across value chain, and more importantly, futuristically, some of the medical device technologies is something that would make a huge difference in terms of from India, which are now high quality but also cost effective. This is a very important aspect. Good quality at the cost effective level will be actually solution not only for global south but also for global north, which all of us will need. So I'll stop here and expand on it later. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Taslim. I think through reflection, indeed, certain commonalities of telehealth, telemedicine, as well as diagnostics, I see as clearly common interest or common driving factors which are emerging. And just to also make a mention that the gigantic leap that you said, what I observe is that I think in 2020, the kind of investment in India, the startup investments was around 450 or 460 million. In 2021, the recent report I read was around 2.2 billion. And although e-commerce and edutech and fintech are running further fast, but health tech is emerging as a major, faster investment sector and the domain. So as you just said that the leap has come in the last couple of years, and it's just a beginning. So I think when you're saying this, I think some of these numbers went through my mind. So I think indeed a great opportunity ahead of us. Thanks for your perspectives. Tonko, coming to you, would like to hear your perspectives on, based on your interactions with the Dutch health system and Dutch care providers, where do you see that they're looking for innovations to help? And if you have any perspectives that where Indian startups, international startups from India could actually possibly help the Dutch ecosystem, Dutch health ecosystem.
First question is the most easy to answer, I think. And that's everything related to saving costs, avoiding costs is welcome. And the more clear the saving part is, and it's not only saving money, but also reducing, for instance, the time a patient needs to stay in the hospital. The clearer it is, the easier the startup has it to be accepted. The other hand, if you look at like Roland just mentioned, proven solutions in the AI domain, acceptance is very hard, even when you are also able to prove that the AI solution helps to save serious money.
Indeed, yeah. I think that's
so
a great.
it's not a black and white answer you can give, and it's absolutely depends on the value proposition of the startup and the acceptance of it by the market, by the physicians.
Right. But I think I can. The way I hear it is that the more operational elements which have got a less regulatory threshold, and then the clinical validation threshold is probably something which gets accepted or being looked at as immediate benefit. That's how I hear what you mentioned. And any reflections on a particular area? So operational efficiency is one what I hear. Anything else that you think, particularly startups beyond Netherlands, let's say from India, could help the Dutch health system?
Well, we work at Rockstock. We work a lot with international startups, and to be honest, I do see differences between the cultural backgrounds and of various startups we work with. The experience I have with Indian startups is that most of them are very professional. They're fluent in English. That also helps in the Netherlands because if you compare it with, for instance, Eastern European based startups, they're not always that good in English. And I think there's also, when you decide to move to the Netherlands, a lot of people from India will feel at home in the Netherlands, or they will at least find a social surrounding environment that is friendly to them.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for the input. Moving on, from the health system interest, more to Andrea, coming to you. You mentioned that 800 plus type of propositions that you come across. From a funding perspective, are there any particular areas that you see are resonating most with the Dutch and the European funding community, especially in biotech, health tech? Anything to reflect on, which from a funding perspective, what resonates? What are the kind of themes which are resonating with the investor community?
Let's see if I can actually bring an answer to this question, because we're not investing. So at ESDELF, we really don't invest in startup, and that's like one area that I don't claim expertise on. But I do think, especially in early stage phases, because that's also where I do have more expertise, I think the most important is not necessarily the track record of what exactly the product can do at the moment, but more importantly, the team is super important, and the team dynamic. We're not looking at solo founders in general, and I don't think any early stage investors will look at a solo founder, except of course some geniuses or I don't know, but that's not going to be the majority. So I would say, the team dynamics are super important in a early stage phase. The vision that is for the product or for the service, of course, the background and the expertise that has brought them to this specific solution, and most importantly, how they envision the roadmap, like how to take it from A to B, and why would they focus on the European market. I think I see this as a lacking point a lot of times with the startups relocating, and not only from India, but like from all over the world. When we receive applications, it doesn't always make sense. Like, why are you willing to move and tackle this market here, when you could start, or at least prove tackling the market where you're based from, and then expand here? So usually there's a better match with the startups that already proved a sort of traction in their home market, and then are willing to expand, because then that shows the capability of running the whole process into going to the market. Whereas if you're like, okay, having a great idea, but you haven't gone too much into depth into a customer validation phase in that early stage, and you're just like, looking at moving anywhere, like not just the Netherlands, but anywhere, you have to really show far more commitment of like, why are you really having an advantage in a
Not.
different market than anything else that you had experienced before, you know? So I find that more cumbersome in general for the startups that are relocating or when they're looking for expansion. So I think that's usually a thing that you really have to have a good answer for.
Right. And you can weigh in, or Tonko, you have perspectives from the investment perspective for the early stage part of it. His Excellency also mentioned about the soft landing. So while the embassy related support and ministry related supports are there, but would you want to call out one or two funding vehicles which are available for international startups that they can tap into? The way India has got support from BIRAC, DBT, some of these particular organizations. CCAMP also has. Would you want to call out a couple of them from Netherlands, which the entrepreneurs can really take a note of?
Yeah, we have quite some. We have INCEF in the Netherlands, Tuja, both quite big funds. And besides that, we have VCs like Healthy Capital, fully focusing on healthcare. And there are many more. If there's someone interested in contacting Dutch VCs, especially early stage, feel free to contact us.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And of course, Roland also can play a role in this with NLC.
Yeah. I think of all the VCs we do have, I think the largest are, like you said, Tonko, INCEF and LSP, and these are also very much internationally oriented. And we have a bunch of smaller ones, some specialized in biotech, some more in medtech, some early stage, some later stage. So we do have an overview on all the funding possibilities also outside of VCs. We have a lot of regional loans, national loans, so all kind of funding opportunities for startups. So we could supply Indian startups with an overview, and then they can have a look what is the best possibility for their specific venture at that moment of time.
Right. I think that's a great suggestion. I think, Ati, probably we can have a separate session on such an overview offline. I think it's a bigger topic to cover now. But thanks, Roland and Tonko, for adding your perspectives. Coming to you, Roland, staying with you, from a evolution of the ventures, how do you see maybe examples of one or two health tech or biotech ventures that you see have evolved and expanded over years? So any examples in your local ecosystem that you want to call out that you see have successfully evolved and expanded?
Yeah, maybe as a start, we started 6 years ago together with universities and academic centers to see which technologies were there, but were not licensed out, or there was no idea to start a venture themselves. So we created over 70 ventures, and at the moment we do have 4 ventures which are in the market with the product. And one of them, I think, is a good example of technology which is really where people are really interested in, and that's an AI solution for people with a brain, how do you call it, infarct, which are now diagnosed by neurologists and radiologists, which takes a couple of hours because it's really hard and difficult to make a proper diagnosis. This company called Nicolab, they developed an algorithm which is capable of doing the analysis within 3 minutes. So the image is sent from a peripheral hospital to in this case, AMC hospital in Amsterdam. Diagnosis is done by the algorithm and sent back to the peripheral hospital. And within a couple of minutes, the doctor can decide what is the best treatment for the patient. So instead of 3 hours, is reduced now to 4 minutes. And Nycolab is now active in several countries, and they are preparing now for an IPO this year. So I think that's a very nice example of a company started only 6 years ago and now serves a lot of hospitals and patients in several countries in Europe.
Thanks for sharing. I think just to add to that part, so Philips and Nicolab jointly look into the stroke triaging solution that you mentioned. So very,
yeah, of course,
very,
because we have a distribution agreement with Philips. That's right, since last year. Yeah.
Yes. So I think very relatable example. So thanks for that. So coming to Dr. Taslim, things that resonated with you from a particular innovation, and then probably also from a perspective that you feel that such kind of innovation best suited for international scaling up, or an example that has really crossed over and then expanded into the international market, something that stuck with you or you would like to call out?
Yeah, no, thank you. So I would like to possibly, by picking one, I would like to pick one of the recent one, which is from an organization called, one of our startups called Koyo Labs, which has now a phenomenal device to prevent one of the most fatal condition in ICU called a ventilator-associated pneumonia, which is globally, present, where patients who are on ventilators, they develop pneumonia because of the trickling of the mucosa from your mouth to the lungs, and they develop this pneumonia, which is because of ventilator they developed, and very high number of people die globally because of and this actually is more fatal for elderly. So apparently, every other person, so 50% of elderly who go on ventilator and develop pneumonia, we can't save them globally. These are global numbers. These are not numbers of LMICs or low middle income countries. This is global number. So they have a product which they have attempted to do is that they have a product which goes on a ventilator and goes towards your trachea along with the ventilator, a small tube like a catheter, and senses humidity or moisture. And as soon as that is formed in our mouth, it doesn't allow it to trickle down to our lungs, but aspirate it out and bleach it right next to the patient bed. By doing so, it prevents the occurrence of ventilator associated pneumonia and saves lives. They have done the clinical studies and they have very, very high percentage of prevention. And now it is approved product in US FDA. It is CE regulatory approved product, and it is present in India, Europe, US, Africa, Ethiopia's of the world, and so on. So this is a very good example of a global problem spotted in India, built here, and now it is approved globally for expansion, and a really an important one to save lives. So I thought this example could possibly a good one to say how innovations can come from any geographies and can serve society globally.
Thanks. Really inspiring of addressing a real bigger total addressable market. In my opinion, I think it's great to for the entrepreneurs to start in India, but scale it up globally. Thanks for that. Andrea, anything to reflect from your side that the innovations as inspiring innovation that you have come across, that not only a great idea but also commercially well scaled up in either biotech or health tech space, as an inspiration of what kind of problems are being solved?
Yeah, I think the biotech was the alternative protein space. I think I've seen really, impressive, or at least with a higher TRL on the fake egg space, and a lot of them are coming from Southeast Asia. I do think it still needs a bit of focus, or a bit more improvement to make it more adapted for the total market. I think people are not yet there to like switch for the egg, but I think there is like a really big startup from India that is having the best looking and the most nutritious alternative egg that there is at the moment, if I'm not mistaken. But I think that's the most striking one that I can think of right now in biotech space.
Right. Thanks. I know Ati will be looking at the time, and we are really close to the time that is allocated. But one last thing that maybe I will request Tonko to reflect on in terms of, and then very briefly, if others can also chime in, that are you actively looking into evaluating and then looking at opportunities from India, and what are your open areas that you would be most interested to maybe receive some signals or approaches from the Indian ecosystem? So very briefly, if you want to call out one or two areas.
We are open to all startups in the health domain from India. Of course, we will look at the quality of the startup, but especially also the market fit with especially Europe. There must be a good rationale behind the decision to board a startup in the program, to accept it. And that means that the startup in most of the cases must be quite close to or getting CE marking or getting to the markets.
Right. So market ready. Yeah. Thanks. Roland, very quickly.
We search on a daily basis PubMed. We have an algorithm who searches PubMed. And so it's not about a specific country, it's from all over the world, of course. And I just looked after, and in total we spotted 7 technologies from India over the last few years. So that's very little when I see that you have 60,000 startups currently in India being active. So maybe that should be more in the future. But yes, the answer is yes, we're looking to technologies and not so much where they come from.
Thank you. Andrea?
Same. I do agree with Roland and with Tonko. Like, it's not so much about like a specific focus. It's far more about like the startup in itself, and like how capable are they to actually bring it to the market, and like what have they done and so on. We are open to anything that is really like more deep tech. So including, I don't know, aviation, aerospace, clean tech, all of these things. It doesn't matter. A deep tech startup is welcomed at Yes Delft, and I'm happy to look at also really early stage solutions. So in the medtech space, if it's pre-CE, that's also fine for me. So they can apply also before a certification.
Yeah, I think I hear some interesting spaces, as well as the breadth that you are open to, and then also Ati, the challenge from Roland that more are welcome. So I think with that, respecting everyone's time, I will pause here. Really thank all of you for your perspectives. I think we have a lot to discuss and cover, but probably we have another subsequent series of sessions with help of Ati. So back to you, Ati. Really thank everyone.
Thank you so much, Kedar, and everyone for your valuable insights on this sector and for such an engaging conversation. I'm sure that the entrepreneurs in the audience may have received insights on basically how they can build their strategies for expanding. And also, you have rightly highlighted the stage of the startups that you're looking at, as well as the sectors and the parameters to focus on. So thank you for such engaging discussion. We would now want to move forward with our pitching session by startups in the healthcare domain. So we have our first startup for today, which is HealthArcs Technologies. Their B2 platform is an online ecosystem bringing everything a person needs for managing chronic conditions. Welcome, Mr. Gautam. You may please start with the presentation.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. And I'm really excited to be able to introduce my company, Beto, to you. Just allow me to perhaps share a few slides. Adi, are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes, we are.
Perfect. So thanks once again for the opportunity. What we're building at Beto is India's largest digital care ecosystem to be able to prevent, control, and now in many cases even be able to reverse diabetes. Beto was really born from a personal pain point when, unfortunately, in my early 30s, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And I just want to take you through, really give you some market context in terms of what it really means to be one of the 200 million plus Indians who unfortunately are at risk from diabetes. And I'll do that through, Mansi, who's a school teacher, and she's actually a Beto member now. And she lives with a family in a small town called Virar, which is a few hundred kilometers away from Maharashtra. The journey that Mansi's had is perhaps what millions of other Indians on a day-to-day basis go through as far as diabetes is concerned. She was, like so many of us, diagnosed very late. Her HbA1c when she was actually diagnosed was close to 9. And this is a very, very normal thing, unfortunately, in India, that people get diagnosed much later on than they should. And also the fact that, the management for diabetes and other chronic conditions is not as robust, results in this 80% of India unfortunately being uncontrolled, 80% of people in India who are diabetic remaining uncontrolled. And this is largely because, of course, diabetes is not treated by specialists. We have far few doctors. Even when you get a chance to visit a doctor, it's barely a 2-minute consult, and typically the first line of treatment is by putting you on metformin. And last but not least, which is even more significant, is that there is no information provided in terms of any lifestyle modification that a person can make. And when we started to dig deep, we realized that the reason for this is because, unlike in the West, the outpatient care in India is largely out of pocket, which means that the healthcare system, unfortunately, is not really incentivized to keep a person out of the hospital. Instead, unfortunately, most of the monetization happens when a person is admitted for, surgeries or elective procedures, etc. And when we started digging, further deep, we realized that diabetes, perhaps as a condition, is something that could actually get managed digitally, and motivated us to even, start looking at this from a business proposition, because it presented a massive opportunity in terms of, the expense on diabetes annually being $17 billion in the US and USD, and projected to be about 35 billion in the next 5 years. So what we're building is at Beto is a full stack digital care ecosystem that cuts across different needs of people with diabetes and caters to their every need on the journey to be able to prevent, control, and reverse it. We start the onboarding of our members. So it's an app ecosystem, but comprising 4 key pillars. We onboard our members through our connected starter kit. So these are small form factor self-blood glucose IoT devices, which simply plug into the phone. We've built it keeping in mind the specifics of India in terms of cost effectiveness. And as you can see, it has no battery, there's no display, it actually gets powered by a smartphone. And once you start monitoring your sugar levels, we are able to see your data, provide personalized actionable insights. We have a digital nudging system. You're able to send caregivers instant alerts, and we have a very interactive health bot that allows you to understand the why behind readings and take corrective action. We don't just stop there. We combine this digital layer of engagement with also human intervention and human interaction through our evidence-based care programs. These are delivered through our certified diabetes educators, and they're supported by our diabetologists and endocrinologists. We ensure we complete the loop by ensuring sustained adherence through a layer of commerce on the app ecosystem, wherein an individual is able to carry out the recurring activities, whether this be medicine refills on a monthly basis, or otherwise with our marketplace of food and beverage products, wherein they can substitute to healthier alternatives. What we believe is that we found the solution to this great Indian diabetes challenge. Today, through our IoT connected starter kits, through our onboarding approach, we've been able to get about 350,000 plus members on our program. And we're adding close to about 40,000 members every month now. What is even more important is the fact that not only are we able to get quick scale through our approach and impact and reach millions of Indians, but we're able to do this in a manner which is deeply engaged. When you look at our retention, we are at close to about 60% retention after year one. This retention stabilizes and it remains at close to 50% even after year two. Some of the other peers, of course, would have perhaps a retention of close to about 20-30% even after month 2 or 3.
Gautam would
Yeah.
not like you, but just we have crossed the time limit. So you
Okay.
can wrap up. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's our solution is also able to provide significant health outcomes, wherein we see about 2 percentage points average drop in HbA1c and 52% reduction in hypoglycemic events. We are at an annual run rate of about $12 million. And more importantly, we're able to actually, significantly expand the market size for diabetes care in India through our approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Gautam. Thank you so much. We have our next startup on board. The next representative is Mr. Loveleen from Bionic Hope Private Limited with their product Grippy, which is an affordable battery-powered prosthesis. Request you to please plug in your presentation and start with the pitch.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Levlin from RoboBionics, and the concept that we have is a hand for a missing hand with the sense of touch. So to begin with, we usually take both our hands for granted and take out one hand from the picture for even a few seconds, and life becomes much more harder. So it's a story about a batchmate of mine who was missing his hand, and he used to struggle through his day-to-day activities, due to which the idea was born into a mind to create something for him. And we noticed that, like limb difference, there are other issues related to a hand, which include paralysis as well as tendon injury. So some of the solutions like prosthetics and bionics were like a significant, valuable feature that our normal hands have, which we call the sense of touch. And the reason it's so important is it's our first sense. We use it like a language, and it relies on a whole list of tactile memory. So it's very key for our perception of the real world. To understand what problems people with limb difference face is the very first thing is they are not able to use this tactile memory and accept these devices. There's a 85% rejection rate in bionics, the social stigma around it, the limited set of options available to a user, and finally, being complex devices is a very high service time. So we noticed that almost 5 million people have a need for some sort of a prosthetic aid globally. And this is Grippy, an advanced prosthetic hand, where a user is able to regain control of his life within a few minutes of using the device. So we designed Grippy keeping in mind that it should be as close as possible to a real hand, in order to learn it fast and have a very key feature known as sense of touch, wherein he could even identify a hard or a soft object and differentiate between it. Uh, Grippy is a fully compliance tested product. It's also regulated by our regulator in India. And we're also undergoing voluntary clinical validations at the moment, which could be used in the future when we are approaching for CE marking as well. We also have created a secondary solution for a prosthesis, which is an app-based interface to identify and objectively understand how to place sensors for a much more effective fitting of a prosthetic device. So we worked with various government agencies as well as private in order to take our device to the market. And these include some of our partners, hospitals, and e-commerce agents as well. So we are open for partnerships with hospitals, CSR programs, and government initiatives. We include a a diverse team of varying backgrounds, including medical design, quality control, and sales, etc. So, just to conclude, as one of our pioneers says, he doesn't see disability or broken people, he sees broken technology. And through Grippy, we are trying to fix this broken technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Lovelin, just in time. Thank you so much for your presentation. We have our last startup in the healthcare segment, which is Leucine Rich Bio, which develops and commercializes gut microbiome tests. Kumar Sankaran, representing the company, is here today. You may please start, Mr. Kumar.
Hello, everyone. This is Kumar Shankaran. I'm the CEO of Lucent Rich Bio. We're South Asia's first microbiome company. We recently graduated from the Mass Challenge Switzerland accelerator. We are a two-time Frost & Sullivan award-winning company, and there are many organizations around the world that have recognized our work that we have done on microbiome, especially in the microbiome diagnostic arena. We've also recently won the National Startup Award in India for life sciences. We've come out with two products. One is our first product is BugSpeaks, which is a human microbiome profiling test. So it looks at gut, oral, skin microbiome, and based on that gives recommendations to improve it. We're also working with various authorities to get a diagnostic approval for the gut microbiome test through BugSpeaks. Our second line of product is Rich Biome, which is our line of probiotic and symbiotic formulations. This is based on all the data that we have gathered by doing the gut microbiome, and based on that, we've come out with this line of products. What we are predominantly seeing is our customers are buying both the testing solution as well as our line of probiotics. So around 60% of our customers are going down this path. We are present in India, and it's a market that we are expanding a lot in. They've through the Mass Challenge program, we've got a foothold both in the Middle East as well as the Europe region, and we're starting to get samples from these regions as well. We're now seeing a quarterly growth of over 100%, both in terms of microbiome samples as well as the probiotics that are being sold. We also have a partnership model where we tie up with different companies to do studies for different disease areas, or for different supplements for the gut. We're now becoming a preferred partner for any kind of clinical studies in these areas. So we do microbiome testing. We also help in deep science ingredients, and we also conduct clinical studies for our partners. The team comprises of three co-founders. Prabhat and I have extensive 10+ years experience in systems biology. Our third co-founder, Dr. Debojyoti Dar, is a PhD in molecular biology with over 10 years experience in business development and pharma consulting. We're backed by an energetic team of molecular biologists as well as computational biologists. Thank you. We're Lucent Rich Bio. We'd be happy to partner with companies from Europe.
Thank you, Mr. Shankaran. That was a great pitch. Thanks to everyone for pitching, and we'd like to congratulate all the startups on winning the National Startup Awards 2021. And thank you to all the panel members for being here and listening to all the pitches. Thank you so much. We'd now like to move forward to our next panel discussion on Indo-Dutch synergies in the agri-tech sector. Yeah. Hello, everyone.
Hi, good evening.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon. Giving an introduction to all, for this session, we have three panelists. We have Mr. Arindam Datta, who's the Executive Director and Head, Rural and Development Banking, Rabobank. He has over 28 years of experience in rural finance and agribusiness banking. He's responsible for the sustainability banking initiatives and has also been honored with India Sustainable Leadership Award. Welcome, Arindam. Looking forward to your views on the panel. We also have Mr. Mark Khan, who is the managing partner at Omnivore, a venture capital firm funding entrepreneurs in agriculture and food systems. Previously, Mark was the executive vice president at Godrej Agrovet and has worked with few other organizations. Welcome, Mark, to our panel.
It's a pleasure to be here.
We also have Ms. Lotte, who is the innovation project manager at World Startup, part of the coordination team for Accelerate AgTech initiative between the Netherlands and India. Great to have you on board, Lotte.
Hi, thank you for having me.
We have the moderator for the session. The moderator for the session would be Mr. Hemendra Mathur, who is the co-founder of ThinkAg and venture partner at Bharat Innovation Fund. Hemendra has over 25 years of experience in venture capital and investment banking. He's an investor, board member, and advisor in many food and agri-tech startups. Welcome on board, Hemendra. Over to you.
Thanks, Ati. Thanks to Dutch Embassy and thanks to Startup India for this wonderful opportunity on a very, very relevant topic, Indo-Dutch synergies in Indian agri-tech. And thanks for putting this panel together. It's a fantastic panel that we have today. Before we get into discussion, let me just take 2 minutes to set the context for the benefit of audience. If you look at Indian agri-tech, I would say it's already maybe 10 to 15-year-old. And as we enter 2022, we are already in the phase 3 of Indian agri-tech. The phase 1 was probably till 2015 when we saw a lot of new age entrepreneurs getting into the sector. There was a lot of POC happening, proof of concept. There was some bit of incubation, some bit of experimentation. And a lot of it was driven by impact capital, likes of Omnivore, Ankur, and few other funds. Phase 2 was, let's say, started on 2016, where we saw an army of entrepreneurs getting into the sector, building very interesting models. And we saw a lot of business models maturing. Some of the models even converting into platforms, like Deha, Samunati, Terra, like 5 or 6 platforms already in the ecosystem. And we also saw a significant amount of capital coming in from many mainstream investors who were fence-sitting in the phase 1. They all got into it. As we stand today, almost $2.5 billion worth of venture capital into the sector, of which $2 billion in last 36 months, $1 billion in last 12 months. So you can clearly see there's an inflection point, and I'm very confident that this momentum is going to sustain for many, many years. As we enter the phase 3, it's very interesting phase, in my opinion, which may last for maybe another 5-7 years. I see 2 or 3 things happening. First, taking this agri-tech to large number of farmers. Again, I would say maybe 10 to 15% of Indian farmers have adopted some agri-tech solution, which can potentially become 80-90%. So I think driving farmer adoption, It's going to be the core focus for a lot of startups which are already there in the sector. There are about 1,300 odd startups already, and that number is also growing. Second, I see Indian agri-tech going beyond digital tech. So whether we like it or not, so far 95% of Indian agri-tech is digital, and I see there's a huge opportunity to build sort of other important components of tech, be it biotech, nutrition tech, processing tech, infra tech. I think those elements will also start coming in. And third, which is relevant to today's topic, is globalization of Indian agtech. I think that's extremely important. And I believe what we're developing in India, we're developing for the world, especially for a lot of smallholder farmers, which are sort of there across continents, across countries. And clearly, Europe is one target market for many of these startups. And when we think of Europe, the first country we think of is Netherlands, given Netherlands' pioneering work in agri-tech, be it controlled environment agriculture, be it precision tech, be it dairy tech. I think Netherlands has done a phenomenal job. So clearly a natural ally for a lot of Indian startups to look at that market. And secondly, also it's one of the largest food traders in the world. So clearly Netherlands is a very, very important country for a lot of startups in India. And that's what we're going to discuss today. And maybe with that, I can start with the panel. I see Harindam disappearing, so maybe I can start with Mark. Mark, you've been investing in the sector for a long, long time, over a decade now, I guess, and will be really good to learn from you how you see Indian agtech landscape changing. And are we ready for the globalization? Are we ready to hit some other markets? So Mark, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, Hemendra, it's a pleasure as always to be on a panel with you and Arindam. We're all, I mean, let's be honest, old stalwarts of this space, having worked in it longer than others, than the new arrivals, who, to be clear, we're very happy to have at the table now. I very much agree with your sense of the waves of Indian agri-tech. I think the first wave was innovative, but almost pre-digital. It was very idiosyncratic. Everyone who started something was crazy, to be honest, and God bless them, because they built the ecosystem from nothing. And then we've been in this kind of foundational platform and marketplace wave really since, I would say, I date it to 2016. Which is also the time that kind of Uran was started and built. This idea that B2B could be digitized across the Indian economy, and I think agri-tech was part of that, a little bit later than everything else, but quickly began to benefit from that B2B and fintech liftoff. And I think the real question over the next few years is about this third wave, which I feel is starting now. Basically, we are seeing a different type of entrepreneur building for this space, really just in the last year or two. Entrepreneurs that are focused on agri-food life sciences, that are focused on insect protein, that are focused on, not just digital solutions, and not just marketplaces, and not just fintech, and not just platforms, but really what can be developed in some cases on top of those foundational layers. That's what we find very exciting right now. Is we feel that from really kind of 2016 through 2021 was about building this organizational and informational layer over the Indian agricultural economy. To be clear, it's not penetrated everywhere. And I would agree with your estimate, about 15, maybe 20% of farmers are benefiting from it. But I think very quickly that will become 100% in the next, say, 3 or 4 years. But once that layer is built, it's about what can go over that, what can go through that. And what gets very interesting, right, is it was always a nightmare bringing innovative products to market for farmers. But when you have an AgroStar or a Dehat, or there are innumerable farmer platforms right now, maybe you can get new innovative biological products to farmers faster, or new seed varieties tested and trialed, right, and commercialized faster. And basically, what always was easy in the West was that, you go to this farmer who has 10,000 acres of land and you can pilot just with them and test with them, and they have good research and good data. And with India, the challenge was always the smallholders, and I feel like the platforms and the marketplaces are now facilitating bringing things, being able to bring new innovations quickly to market much faster than earlier before, without the corresponding costs. So the same way that D2C brands have revolutionized the FMCG space, I think what we're going to start to see in the next few years in agri-tech is sort of the equivalent. You'll start to see players like a Bioprime being able to bring products to market much, much faster than 10 years ago, where they would have had to build their own sales force, right? And have an area sales manager for UP and an area sales manager for Bihar. And I think this is a pretty exciting moment for our ecosystem. Regarding the point about the internationalization of Indian agri-tech, I think it's already started, right? If I look at, for example, the best example is Cropin, where Krishna Kumar has gotten infinitely more business outside of India than inside of it, right? But there are many other players. Fussel from our portfolio is very rapidly commercializing their on-farm devices in Southeast Asia, right? If I look at IntelloLabs, right, a huge part of their sales is now outside of India. And I think in that sense, the Netherlands is the go-to partner for being able to launch, Indian agri-tech globally. I think in general, it's where Indian agri-tech startups should set up. There's a large domestic, ecosystem to sell into. Immigration is infinitely easier than the American insanity. And I'm saying this as a U.S. passport holder. Hopefully they don't pull it. Given them enough reasons over the years. I think the most important thing, and something that I find very exciting, is as this shift happens, where it's not just about digital, but it becomes about agri-food life sciences, right? That's where there are wonderful synergies with the Netherlands to be able to have access to that kind of R&D talent, to those kinds of facilities, which we're still, let's be clear, struggling to build in India. And so I keep, every time I speak to the Dutch embassy and the agri team there, the thing that I keep trying to say is, like, enough with the digital, right? Let's move to the life sciences, because that's where our ecosystem needs the help. That's where we need the partnerships. We're good on digital. We're good on that stuff. It's not that we can't benefit from AI partnerships, but let's be honest, India's talent knows how to build in that space. But for life sciences, that's really where the partnership needs to step things up. And then I'm very confident we can build, right, global competitors in that space. And that's where I'd love to see the focus over the next few years. And Omnivore has started an initiative called Omnix Bio. We're going to have a lot more announcements over the next 12 months about it. But this is a big push for us as we look to the future of Indian agri-tech.
Thanks, Mark, for very well summarizing what has happened and what can happen. And clearly, your views on Netherlands in particular, I'm spot on. I totally agree. It's a great country for us to learn from. Biotech, for sure, I think Netherlands is far, far ahead. And with institutions like Wageningen and many others, I think we can definitely lean on that expertise which lies there. Another area which I find very interesting is dairy. And in fact, there are a lot of Dutch dairy experts. I work with a startup called Mango Dairy, and they've got expertise from a Dutch company called PUM, who has a bunch of Dutch experts came to India and sort of guided the team. So there are examples already. I'm sure much more can be done. With that, maybe I can go to Arindam. When we talk of Indo-Dutch partnership, it can't happen without Rabobank. We all know Rabobank is the bridge between India and Netherlands. And Arindam, will be good to learn from you. What are the areas that you see where Indian tech startups can partner with not just Dutch startups, but the Dutch ecosystem, so that we all move forward in our quest for globalization.
Yeah, thanks, Heminder. I hope I'm audible, because I am having a little bit of problems on the platform. Now, I think Mark has summed it up very, very well. Let me add a little bit more to that. I think the main transformation we have seen in the so-called digital agriculture revolution in the last 5 years has been the inflow of human resource talent into agriculture. Prior to that, we didn't have the best in class professionals getting into agriculture, but I think the potential of agriculture and the potential of technology in agriculture has changed that hugely. And now we have the best of B school graduates, engineers, 25 years of Silicon Valley experience getting into agriculture, and they have made a big difference. Now, let's see what let's talk about the Dutch agriculture system. Now, as a tiny country having a population of 16 to 17 million, they are the second largest agri-trade country in the world. Huh? So Dutch agriculture is extremely efficient, and more importantly, they are the global leaders so far as sustainable agriculture is concerned. So just to add to what Mark said, we can learn a lot about sustainability, what sustainable agriculture practices are, what kind of soils we need to have, what kind of water usage we need to have, etc. And all of that, there's a lot to learn from the Dutch. Now, while there's a lot already happening on the investment front, we have many Dutch investors already investing into Indian, tech companies. But it's a transfer of knowledge, which I think is critical. Along with that, the other thing that we need to learn from the Dutch ecosystem is how the different sectors work together. The private sector, the development sector, the universities, the academia, and the government. They almost work seamlessly to promote agriculture and technology in agriculture in the Netherlands. We don't see such, while there's a lot of push coming from the government, but there is still a big disconnect between the academia, the public sector, the development sector, and the private sector in India. It all needs to come together to make it happen. So I guess another softer piece we need to learn from the Dutch is how to cooperate among different sectors, different players. It's extremely important to make digital technology work in India. I think where the Dutch technology and knowledge will find India to be extremely, extremely interesting is the sheer scale of Indian agriculture. Whether you look at the production side, whether you look at the number of farmers, whether you look at the number of consumers that we have in India. Now, in Netherlands, they don't have that kind of scale. To really work out on ML AI solutions, India is the perfect piloting ground for all of that. And to build up deep technology, I think the Dutch have evolved a lot of deep technology in agriculture. We are seeing very little of that in India. Right now, what we are seeing is the first wave of digitization. And what we are seeing in India right now is information asymmetry being addressed. That people have more knowledge about where the markets are, where to get the best input, where to get the best advisory. But we need the second level of deep technology to make it all very meaningful from a sustainability, income, and from an inclusive perspective.
Thanks, Arindam, for laying out the framework for Indo-Dutch partnership. I think all points are extremely valid, and I have a few questions. I'll come back to you. Maybe I can go to Lotte now. We all know the role World Startup is playing in terms of helping impact-driven entrepreneurs to go cross-border. And I think you are working very closely with us in building Indo-Dutch ag innovation platform, which is very interesting. I haven't seen any other country taking the lead, and good to see Netherlands being one of the first country to do it. And I'm sure there are other countries who want to follow it. How do you see, sort of Indian ag-techs leveraging Dutch expertise, and do you also see interest from Dutch startups and innovators to look at Indian market?
Yeah, fantastic questions. First of all, I want to say thank you so much to Mark and Arindam, because you both explained that so eloquently. It's really wonderful to hear from people who have such expertise on the subject. Ag-tech is not my number one knowledge base. I work in innovation. We work with lifting up startups, and ag-tech is this year a relatively new, in the last 12 months, subject for me, but I found it fascinating. So I'm really happy to be here. And I think a couple of really important points have already been made that I'll sort of reiterate and build on. I think that the Dutch sector at the moment, our focus for ag-tech, as I've understood it, is sustainability and efficiency, as Arindam already mentioned. And I think that's a really important focus that is going to keep. It's a new mandate, I guess, for a lot of people. If we're talking about the phases of how this is going to grow, sustainability is going to have to be more and more at the forefront of how we all do things, and agtech absolutely not being an exception. And I think agtech probably has, as a sector, the most potential to be sustainable because it's so multifaceted and because there are so many opportunities and directions that we can go in. So I think that that's a really important focus to bear in mind, and that definitely the two countries, that the Netherlands and India, can really learn from each other. I think that, as Arinda mentioned, that India, the scale of the ag tech industry is so much bigger than in the Netherlands, and the few startups that I have been in touch with have such interest in being more internationally, obviously scaling up, but also learning from their peers in a very related sector. They work alongside each other, albeit at a great distance in very different settings. But I think the interest is massive in learning for different climates, environments, and in a scale where with very different kind of challenges in terms of population and everything else, and maybe incorporating some of these sustainability lessons along the way. I also think that the Netherlands, what we contribute, I'm calling in from The Hague, so I'm inherently biased. What we contribute, I think, to this conversation is the space to innovate in this sector. We really, as a country, I believe, encourage innovation, trying new things, experimenting with maybe slightly radical ideas, and see how we can tweak it in order to be innovative. And I think that's why we have the number of startups, particularly in the sector that we do, because there's space to do that here, just intellectually, but also within organizations and funding. The fact that World Startup, that I'm representing today, the fact that this is all we do in terms of work, I think says a lot about the importance that we lay on being able to innovate and having the space to explore new opportunities. And the ag tech sector is currently something we're focusing on quite heavily. Obviously, we're working together with the Dutch ministry to see if we can create a sort of shared platform for the two sectors in the two countries, and exactly do the lesson learning from each other, have the opportunity shared in a space where everyone has access to them, and really start communicating with each other on all the opportunities to accelerate this sector forwards. So I think that's my contribution to this.
Thanks, Lodette. Really wonderful points, and clearly the kind of expertise that you have in building the innovation ecosystem is going to be very useful for building this platform. So thanks for all your efforts in working with us on this. With that, I can probably go back to Mark. Lotte mentioned about sustainability as one of the key drivers sort of for innovations. And I think in India also we are seeing a lot of startups focusing on water use efficiency. You mentioned but Fussell, and there are many more. Some focusing on food loss reduction, some focusing on reducing GHG emissions. How important is for an investor like you to drive this agenda, which can bring more innovations to drive sustainability, and do you see capital coming for it? Yesterday I heard an announcement by Eversource from Everstone, a $741 million climate focus fund, which is good news. So do you see capital coming to drive sustainability in India, especially in agriculture?
So I actually think it's going to be a big part of what you call the third wave. I think the second wave was really about generalist VCs coming in because they started to understand that, as they looked at B2B and fintech, 25% of the economy is ag and half the population's on farm. And so that kind of came under that umbrella. And so we benefited right from that over the last few years. I think there's a huge amount of global capital that is going to be unlocked when people start recognizing that you cannot solve the challenge of climate change without tackling agriculture from a climate change mitigation perspective, right? 20% of India's emissions footprint is coming from ag, right? Three big culprits: cattle, fertilizer, and rice, right? And so, you have to tackle that. And from a resilience, right, an adaptation perspective, we are, there are some places in the world where climate change will probably be nice. If you live in Duluth, Minnesota, or Siberia, it's probably going to be all right. It's not going to be fun if you're on the Gangetic Plain, right? And so if we're going to build a future for our farmers and our rural communities and our farmers' families, we have to support and accelerate climate action around resilience and adaptation. And so I think it's just going to become a more and more fundamental aspect of our thesis. We consider it at Omnivore, right? Sustainability and climate action are two of our four pillars behind kind of our theory of change, our vision of how to transform Indian ag. And I think, you mentioned this new fund, right? Rise has now raised, TPG Rise has raised billions for climate. I think there are going to be more and more dedicated climate specialists, right? You've really got a huge amount of capital building around climate, and I think that is going to find its way to Indian agri-tech in the next, it already is, but that will accelerate in the coming years, and the centrality of the climate thesis to our sector will just keep on increasing.
Sure, Mark. Thanks very much, and thanks for expanding the third wave sort of mandate. Clearly, climate tech, climate capital is very much part of it. Arindam, same question to you. How important it is to drive sustainability for financial institutions like Rabobank? We all know Rabobank is a great believer and supporter of sustainable agriculture. How do you see that panning out? And second question, I think you're the most appropriate person to ask, is all this agri-fintech sort of innovation that we are seeing in India, a lot of agri-tech pivoting to fintech or developing sort of digital models to land efficiently. What's your view on that? How big that can become in India?
Yeah, thanks, Hemendra. To answer both your questions, firstly, the role of financial institutions. Now, whether we talk of financial institutions from an investment perspective or from a debt perspective, it's extremely important that they drive this change. They are driving this change. Most of this change is being driven by European and US investors and financial institutions, the multilaterals. But it's the local financial institutions in India which have to imbibe sustainability principles while funding the sector, whether it's agriculture or any other sector. We are already seeing the green shoots that a national level task force has been formed to determine what the financial parameters and norms should be for Indian financial institutions, because they have 80% of the market share. About 95% of the agriculture financing is done by domestic players. So it's extremely important that they look at financing agriculture from a climate lens. Already the niche financing institutions like Samunati and others are putting on the climate lens. They are doing dedicated climate financing, food loss financing, etc. But that needs to be more mainstream now. So it's the local financial institutions who have to drive it, along with regulatory kind of mandates around what should be allowed in agriculture, what should not be allowed, and what should be allowed for the financing institutions to finance and not. So that's one. Second is, from an ag fintech perspective, I think that's one of the largest opportunities for digital technology in India. Now, firstly, because again, I talk about the scale and size, and second is that's where the revenue is for most of the digital companies. Once they are linking up farmers to markets, farmers to infrastructure, farmers to knowledge bases, a lot of them find it very difficult to monetize their offerings, their services, or the solutions they have. Now, once you get financing in, whether it's not only debt financing I'm talking of, it's all about risk mitigation financing products, not only at the farmers level, at the supply chain level, that's where they can add a lot of value to the work that they do. Now, in India, as we know, Mark talked about areas to set up a traditional company. Similarly, in the banking sector, if you are doing farmer or upstream agriculture financing, you have to set up an army of people out there in the field, which is very inefficient. It leads to very high transaction costs. The risk costs are high. So the hypothesis is that once you digitize farmers and supply chains, you will cut down on transaction cost, you'll cut down on risk cost, you'll be able to take your financing decision, your credit decision on far better data about how good a farmer is as a businessman and how a farmer behaves. so far as repaying loans and all is concerned. It's already happening. And what we are seeing in the Indian market today, that large financing institutions are teaming up with fintech companies or with tech companies to get better understanding of the underlying credit for financing. And that's extremely important, because what we are seeing in India today, that's this technology, this solution, this innovation in the financing space is going to go global, especially in the global south. I'm sure that we are already seeing companies like Satsha working in multiple geographies in Southeast Asia, in Africa, and there'll be a lot more players from India who will be able to work with financing institutions to unlock mainstream capital for agriculture, a sector which is underserved across the developing world. So there's a huge potential out there, and the good part is that change is already happening.
Absolutely, Arindam. I can't agree more. What has happened in last 12 months in Indian financial institution is a big eye opener for me. Also, I never expected the way and the speed at which a lot of banks are moving, including SBI, ICICI, HDFC, Yes Bank, Axis Bank. I think it's quite phenomenal that all of them are talking of an agri-tech or agri-fintech program, so to say, essentially to change the way the PSL lending has been happening in India. So that's great. I totally agree in terms of the size of opportunity and the role of local financial institution, as you mentioned, that's extremely critical. I see Ati coming in. We have last 3 to 5 minutes, and I want to give the last word to Lotte. Lotte, how do you see the Dutch ecosystem? Dutch institutions, Dutch incubators, Dutch investors. Of course, we have likes of FMO investing in India. How they come into play to support Indian tech? What's their role, and how do you see this institutional partnership or institutional interventions going forward as part of this Indo-Dutch innovation program that we intend to launch?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll keep it brief because I know we're short on time. But I think that it's a matter of working with unsuspected partners, right? A lot of things at the moment with globalization and all sectors having to work more together to ensure maximum efficiency and using the resources that we have to work with partners that they've maybe not worked with before. Private sector having to work with the more charity or NGO sector, private sector working more with universities, funding, having to seek out startups and other initiatives. They all, I think in the last 5 years, it's safe to say that across many, many different sectors, this trend we see happening. So I think everyone, particularly in the Netherlands, is very equipped with that way of thinking now and is celebrated if they work with slightly unsuspected partners. So I think universities, Wageningen obviously is a real front runner in this sector in the Netherlands. They bring so much knowledge and so many opportunities to work on new initiatives. We have also universities in general really promoting young people to come up with fascinating initiatives for a world challenge that they think is worthy enough to put all their time into. And that's why we're having all these startups that are popping up, because I think universities in general are really encouraging that at the moment. I think that funding, more and more the idea of funding something that might be a little bit risky as an investment, innovation funding, is slowly becoming something that is people are a bit more comfortable with. We're seeing more and more funding happening with room to innovate and with room to experiment on a slightly smaller scale to then scale up at some point. So I think funding will really come into play in that sense at some point in the Netherlands. And I also think that, incubators, World Startup is an incubator. Connecting networks is really the thing that's going to help everyone forward, because we need to keep learning from the outside world. We need to keep learning from each other, and networking opportunities that incubators can offer, platforms, communities, they're popping up absolutely everywhere, is going to be really key to take this forward and to really have all these different voices, the funding, the universities, the startups together in one place to be able to talk to each other, and also what's maybe not going so well in working together. It's very different languages, different cultures. Offering a safe space to discuss that openly, because we're all working towards the same mandate and same goal. It's not as competitive, I believe. So that is how I think the different networks are going to be starting to intermingle with each other.
Thanks, Lotte. Thanks very much for a very optimistic view, and we really look forward to work with you in this program. So with that, I would just want to thank all the panelists, Mark and Indam Lotte, for wonderful insights. It was a 30-minute, very short panel, but I think very, very insightful, I must say. And it's just the start of a long journey, I must say. And with that, probably I'll hand it over back to Ati.
Good
Thank
seeing
you,
everyone.
Hemendra. Thank you
Thanks.
so
Thanks.
much. It was actually great to hear, your thoughts on the synergies that are existing and, the focus on sustainability, subsectors in agriculture, financing options for startups, all the ecosystem players in universities too. I think that the inputs were extremely insightful, and I'm sure all the agriculture startups wishing to take their businesses to Europe must have had many takeaways in terms of the huge opportunity existing in front of them. So I thank all of you again for these extremely beneficial insights. I'd now like to move on to the next segment, which is our startup pitches in the agriculture space, where three outstanding startups, also the winners for National Startup Awards, would be showcasing their innovative products and solutions. Uh, the first pitch is by Shapo Services, which is an AI and IoT led digital ecosystem for Silk. And Mr. Devesh Pratap would be presenting to you today. Over to you, Devesh.
Thank you.
Devesh, you're on mute.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Devesh Pratap Singh Bhadoria. I'm working as a VP for Business Operations for Resha Mandi. On behalf of entire Resha Mandi team, I would really like to thank the organizers of Startup India for giving us an opportunity to interact with the Dutch government officials. It's really a pleasure for me to represent Resha Mandi. Now, Resha Mandi is the India's first and the largest B2B market for natural fibers, textiles, and apparels. Our mission here at Resha Mandi is to make India the natural fiber superpower. At Resha Mandi, we provide AI and IoT-led digital ecosystem for natural fibers, starting from farm to fashion. Here, I would like to showcase the business process of Resha Mandi and how we are helping to improve the natural fiber ecosystem of the country. Should I uptick my presentation, or would you
Yes,
like me
yes,
to? Okay.
you can do that.
Okay. Is it visible?
Mm, it's loading. I think till the time it loads, you can continue.
Okay. So, like I said, from farm to fashion, we are fully vertically integrated from eggs to cocoons to yarns to fabric. We are empowering our stakeholders by advisory, IoT devices, apps, and other proprietary tech innovations. We are also bringing microfinance online for all our value creators, farmers, reelers, weavers, and retailers. Um, we have got two verticals, one which revolves around agri sector, which is called Resha Farms, while the other is called Resha Weaves, which revolves around B2B segment. Now, the advantage that in Resha Farms, in the agri side, the advantage that we offer to our stakeholders is by providing them quality silkworm eggs to the farmers, IoT devices followed by advisories for better yield and better quality output. We also help farmers in selling out the yield with the competitive prices in the market. We have a strong market presence at present in south of India, and now we are also expanding to east and northern clusters of India. We have scientific pricing determinations. Uh, Now, coming down to the Resha Mandi B2B part, the advantages here that we offer to our stakeholders are we offer the best quality handloom products like silk, cotton, jute, hemp, linen, wool, and bamboo. We offer competitive prices in the industry, circular economy, transparency, accessibility. Now, at Resha Mandi, tech plays a very, very critical role. It really helps us to centralize the supply chain. When I say that, I mean the scientific grading of the output at each phase, the IoT devising to improve the production at the farm level, the AI and ML for forecasting. We have our super apps enabling stakeholders to make use of the services. We also have a sustainable supply chain for our commodities. When I say that, I mean the byproducts that we produce. They are somewhere or the other used in some or the other industry, like sericin, fibroin, poultry feed, mulberry tea, recycling natural fibers, reusing yarns. So that is exactly what we do at Resha Mandi. So that's from my side. Any questions that you like to ask?
Thank you, Mr. Devesh. That was an interesting presentation. Um, Unfortunately, we're not taking up questions in this segment. Uh, but yes, thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you
Uh,
so much.
we now have Mr. Jagdish from Atria Global Solutions with their work in eco-friendly bioactive formulations to improve crop yield and health. Uh, Over to you, Jagdish. You can share your screen.
Yeah, yeah, ma'am. One minute. Yeah, good evening, everyone. We are working on photosynthetics. Sorry, I think you are able to see the screen.
No, it seems to have
Not right
dropped.
now. Yeah.
1 minute.
Can you try again?
Yeah, yeah. This is photosynthetic stimulator technology to improve crop productivity. The main idea is to increase water use efficiency by stimulating the tertiary rootlets in the root, and second, by improving the efficiency of enzymes that do a lot in the Kelvin cycle. Mainly we concentrate on Rubisco enzyme, which is the pacemaker enzyme, which do a lot in carbon capturing and its conversion to uh, sugars. Finally, it goes to grains and fruits and nuts. So many things. This is a second product which we have identified to stimulate Kelvin pathway. The third one, actually, the main important thing which is responsible for increasing the photosynthesis is the utilization of sunlight. Because in the first green revolution, there is work was towards segregating the harvest index rather than enhancing the solar radiation absorption and its conversion to photosynthesis. So in this, we have gone out of the box to find out the ways to improve photophosphorylation enhancing molecules, so that whatever the sunlight which falls on the leaves will be converted into ATP and NADPH, which in turn used by the Kelvin cycle to fix carbon dioxide. So actually, this solution answers two things. One is the climate, with the more carbon dioxide and its conversion to the usable photosynthetics in the form of grains or sugars. Other two products which we have is Kriya and SR. Kriya is mainly to modulate cellular activity, and SR is for the taking the chemicals into the cells and play a role in modulating that. And other generic products which we have is micronutrients, which are in molecular forms. As I told before, the basis behind this innovation is to improve the solar radiation absorption and its utilization in the carbon dioxide fixation by increasing the efficiency of Kelvin cycle enzymes. So thereby we can reduce the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Actually, we take this as an opportunity, and in India we have close to 140 million hectares which is irrigated, because water is necessary, though it increases the water use efficiency in conversion, but in the critical stages it has to be a given water, or else the solar radiation which is trapped in the cells has to be utilized in the form of converting the carbon dioxide to the sugars. In a worst situation, if the water is not there, the leaf may drop. That's the effect which we have seen during the field studies. So this is a couple of studies which have taken in Karnataka, Gujarat, and Tamil Nadu. We have tested the technology in sugarcane, pomegranate, chili, cotton, banana, and even tomato also in Kolar area. The output was almost say 45% compared to the control, with minimum chemical inputs. We call it as agrochemicals, so that we can even save the soil also by implementing this technology. The business model which we are dealing is with farmers, seed industries, and nurseries. The sales are there, contract farming we are also looking into, and we are looking for joint ventures to cater this technology outside India too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jagdish. And that was an interesting presentation. Now we move on to the last pitch for today, which is by Mr. Akshay Dikshit from Vesatogo Innovations Private Limited. They have a logistics platform through which farmers get information of the current market trends. Please take it forward from here, Mr. Akshay.
Thank you so much, Ati. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, and is my screen is visible to all of you?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ati, for the introduction, and it's a pleasure to meet all of you here. My name is Akshay Dikshit, and I represent Visatogo Innovations. We are an agri-tech startup based in Nasik. Visatogo is an amalgamation of two words, Vesa meaning small farmer in Sanskrit, and Togo meaning integration in Japanese. We are working towards the integration and the aggregation of the small and marginal farmer community, and the name itself represents the vision that we have for the ecosystem. We are supported by numerous organizations. To name a few: Digital Impact Square, which is a TCS Foundation initiative, Sayadri Farms, Unlimited India, Y Combinator, Indigrams Lab Foundations, etc. So talking about the ecosystem in particular, primarily what we have seen is almost 60% of India's population depends directly on agriculture, out of which 85% of them are marginalized, which means they have less than 5 acres of land holding. Problems faced are numerous. For a farmer in particular, almost 12% of his income is so spent on hiring logistics services. There is no part loading facility available in rural India, and they have to pay special fares for part loading. Similarly, for a vehicle owner, there is almost all the time there is 30% of underutilization of the vehicle, and there is a lot of inconsistency in the income. So, just to understand the ecosystem well, we also did multiple, you can say, on-field interactions to understand the ecosystem well. And this is the solution that we came up with. So, primarily, we have developed two products. One is the Gramic product, and second is the FPO management system. If you see, the Gramic platform is primarily used by the farmers to, you can say, to have market linkages and shared vehicle services. And the FPO management system is a highly customized supply chain SaaS based solution, which is primarily used by FPOs and agribusinesses to manage their complete operations. Allow me to explain them in details in the coming slides. So talking about the Gramic platform, it's in a very simple sentence. It's a mobile-based market linkage and aggregated logistics platform for the farmer. On a mobile-based application, we show the farmer of the rates of various market yards near his vicinity for the product that he's growing, so that he can make a smart and informed decision, ensuring higher profitability. At the same time, we are now piloting with an experiment of how we can connect these farmers under a single vehicle, so as to it ensures, you can say, reduced post-harvest expenditure as well, hence increasing the income of the farmer by a two-way approach: first by better market realization, and second by reduced post-harvest expenditure. This system has been made live for almost 2 years now, and we have been able to deliver almost 2 lakh metric tons of produce from various farmers that we have onboarded, with the recent count being touching 2,750 of users who are actively using this platform. This is the second platform that we have developed. While we were working on the Gramic platform, we got introduced to a lot of buyers in the organic setup, so to say, that is FPOs, food processors, exporters, and agri-food aggregators. And what we felt was there is a lack of a single one-stop solution to manage all their activities from seed to plate, and hence we developed an FPO management system, which is a highly customized SaaS-based product for FPOs or any agribusinesses to use, which can primarily maintain all their activities starting from pre-harvest post-harvest, and market linkages and sale. In the pre-harvest, we have, you can say, registration of all your farmers, digital profiling, you can say projections of your harvest, benchmarking and price discovery for which farmer needs to be given what rate, starting all the way up to post-harvest, you can say, wherein you can plan your harvest cycles, we can plan your vehicles and labors, and all the way up to a market linkage and sale, wherein we have developed a point of sales platform for them to sell it to end customer. Through the complete ecosystem, we are able to provide end-to-end traceability through digital records. Since we launched this product almost 2 years back, and since then we have digitized data of almost 12,000 farmers till date. And you can say at its peak, the system was handling almost 1,200 tons per day of procurement. So this is the business scope. We are right now focusing on agri industries in exports, processing, and retail. In the long term, we wish to expand into dairy, poultry, even sericulture. As a matter of fact, a gentleman just before me was talking about that as well. And apart from that, these are the recent achievements that we have had. This is the team profile. My name is Akshay. I, along with me, have founding members Ashish Madankar, Sagnika, and Webber. We have mentors Sandeep Shinde from TCS, our domain advisors Pankaj Junja from Tata Motors, and Mr. Vilas Shinde from Sayadri Farms. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Akshay. It was indeed a great presentation. I thank all the startups for presenting your innovations and showcasing the outstanding work that you all are doing. We wish you immense success in your journey. All the best. Moving on, I would now like to invite Ms. Shivangi Jain, Assistant Vice President at Startup India, Invest India, for delivering the closing remarks. Over to you, Shivangi.
Thank you so much, Ati. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and my greetings to His Excellency Mr. Bagla and all their esteemed panelists and guests who've joined us today. I'm very delighted to be in this great company. I'm Shivangi. I'm leading global strategy as an AVP at Startup India. After 5 successful preceding sessions, we are finally here at the concluding event of the Indo-Dutch talks. And the sessions couldn't have been more exciting without the insightful and energy-infusing panel discussions and the vibrant startup pitches that we heard in the agri-tech and the health tech sector. So thank you so much for joining us. The action-packed series has actually seen a great traction from both the ecosystems. I remember 11 months back, I was a part of the launch event in the middle of the pandemic, and yet we saw over 5,300 participants joining us from India and Netherlands. So that definitely shows the interest both the ecosystems have in each other and also the synergies. We have had almost 12 plus experts who've joined us from the Netherlands who've been guiding and mentoring our Indian startups. Over these sessions, we've had almost 5,000 plus attendees, entrepreneurs, founders, upcoming entrepreneurs who have been interested in expanding to the Netherlands. And we've received over 70 plus positive responses as well. All of this, it couldn't have been possible without the support of our fabulous partners who have been working with us very passionately from the very beginning of the Indo-Dutch talks. My heartfelt gratitude to His Excellency, to Mr. Bagla for their constant support and valuable guidance. A very big thank you to the Embassy of Netherlands in India, Paulina, Ravleen, and the entire team, the Indian Embassy at Hague for their constant support, and also special shout out to my team, Ati and Sana, who've been working very closely with the embassy to actually make this happen in the most fruitful way. So thank you so much for all your efforts. Additionally, I would also like to thank our panelists for taking out the time from their busy schedules and making this event a success, making the series a success. And thank you to all the NSA Startup winners. Congratulations and thank you for joining us, for sharing your pitches with all of us, and the founders who've also been a part of the Indo-Dutch Talk series. So thank you so much for taking out the time. We really hope that you were able to derive value from all the points that have been discussed today and all the insights and all the points that have been shared with you in the previous sessions as well. And I hope you now better understand the synergies and also the market fit for your startup. This program has been one significant step in bringing both the innovation ecosystems together. And like always, we'll keep coming up with joint programs between India and Netherlands. We request you to also keep following us on the Indo-Dutch Startup Link, which is a central platform to to help the entrepreneurs from both the ecosystems learn about the corresponding market. We keep on uploading information about the upcoming programs as well. And thank you so much for your valuable time. And we all wish you all the very best. Thank you. Over to you again.
Thank you so much, Vangi, for those encouraging words. I'd now like to take a moment to thank all the audience for joining the session. I hope the session was insightful for all of you and you had some valuable takeaways as well. In case you have any further questions with respect to the initiative or with the programs that we do, please write to us at dipp-startups@nic.in and we'll be happy to assist you. Thank you everyone for joining this and please stay safe.